You can dance, you can jive, having the time of your life. See that girl, watch that scene, dig in the dancing queen.
And welcome to the Nerd Herd Podcast.
Wow. I'm singing over you, Greg.
No, we can stop here. We can just do the whole podcast of Amy singing. Absolutely fantastic, Amy, and what a sport you are, because I kind of dumped into our Twitter handle a poll. And for the life of me, I didn't think Dancing Queen had a chance. It was more of a like, haha, what a funny idea that apparently got hijacked by our Twitter followers because there's over 100 votes there, and 52% of them were for Dancing Queen. And my opinion is that the Nordics hijacked the poll. But
our Denmarkian friends, you think?
They're secretly trying to get a message to me.
Yes.
What were the other options besides Dancing Queen?
Hey, Jude. Respect. And I will always love you.
Respect is a good one. I will always love you is mean. Like, they were nice that they didn't make her do that.
I'm not going to do the Whitney. I'm going to do the Dolly. Because Dolly I can handle. I mean, not really, but like more than the Whitney.
I was thinking Whitney when I put that in there. That was the one I voted for.
No,
so
yeah,
I
voted for Dolly.
Here's what I do. I'll do another one this week. I'll pick up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop out the song with the lowest vote from this one and the song that was selected. So there'll be two that come out. Two will stay in, which I think is Respect and Hey Jude. And then I'll add in two more. We'll see what people think for the next episode. But thanks for playing along, Amy. You were a good sport about that because you didn't know that was coming.
No, and just for you, can I please read my poem about why Greg should not be allowed to use the polling feature in the future?
Wow. So hold on. Before you start the poem here, there could be an executive decision amongst the four of us that I can't do Twitter polls anymore? Is that an option that comes out of this?
I'm not making. I'm not. Is there a poll? I vote. Greg continues.
All right, Amy, read your poem, Amy.
This is just to say, Greg has posted the polls on songs on the Twitters, in which you were probably hoping for Dancing Queen. Forgive me, they weren't melodious, so twangy and so off key.
Oh, good job, Amy.
Excellent.
So really, it comes down to Eddie's decision. Are we going to do more polls or no more polls?
Why did I get thrown in the middle of this? I feel like it's like stabbing your friends or your friends. Like, I don't want to stab anybody.
Are you Team Greg or Team Amy is what this comes down to. No.
It's definitely not Team Ears. Basically, the loser here is always people's ears.
So, Ed, you could abstain.
How is Ed the deciding vote? If Ed votes against,
it's 2 versus 2.
That's still 2-4 and 2 against.
Hold on. We always have a tiebreaker. Call out downstairs, get one of the kids upstairs, and let them break the tie.
I have. So for Memorial Day weekend, I have kicked everybody out of the house except the animals. I am completely alone. It is the most blissful time I've ever had in my life. I'm enjoying every second of it.
Well,
Adelaide will turn on me.
Well, throw one of the dogs in the air.
Too busy napping.
We'll go heads or tails on a dog. So just throw the dog in the air.
All right, Greg.
I don't know.
I'm gonna throw it in. I'm teasing, but you know what? I'm game. I'm a good sport. Bring it on. Bring it on. I'm not afraid.
How about this, Amy? How about I let you pick those other two songs?
Ooh, Eddie, will you help me? You're such a good DJ. I think you can help me find something in my range. We have similar music tastes.
Okay.
All right.
I'm down.
All right. So look for the poll.
I found a friend. Eddie's going to help me.
Look for a poll on Tuesday, and we'll do another 3-day poll, and it will be considerate of Amy's desired songs. So, because you had no input on these last ones.
No, Eddie, please look up songs that require half an octave. Something in the
genre. Something easy. I might.
So Mariah Carey, that kind of.
But I will say, our views on YouTube jumped pretty good this week, right? So I think, Amy, you're bringing something unique to the table, and I just wanted to exploit it for all it was worth. And so thank you. We'll just dangle you out there as our bait for people to listen to the podcast. Bait. Yes.
Oh boy!
But so it's funny. We've been talking about the YouTube stuff that we've been doing for the last few episodes, and kind of joking around about the actual view numbers. Which, let's be honest, even with this uptick this week, there's still pretty light views. But the industry, the podcasting industry, was kind of turned on its head this week when Joe Rogan announced that he was taking his party and going to Spotify by the end of the year, and essentially using YouTube for quick little clips. But now to get Joe Rogan's podcast, you've got to subscribe to Spotify. I don't watch Rogan's podcast he does like 2 or 3 episodes a week. I don't watch all of them. I catch them periodically, especially when there's a good one like with Elon Musk or others that just, it almost feel like it's a train wreck and you got to watch it. And he never fails to deliver, especially with Elon Musk. But it's really, really interesting that some people are estimating his deal with Spotify is over $100 million.
Wow.
And some people are lamenting this idea that you've got this open platform YouTube, which I would argue is not really, anybody can do it, but I don't think you can call it an open platform per se. But it's accessible to all, I think is the point of saying you're open, versus Spotify that you have to have a subscription to attend. And my gut reaction was like a lot of other people, boy, he's going to lose people. Then I thought about like Howard.
So, because you can listen to Spotify with ads on, can you not listen to podcasts with ads on? Or is it a different model?
I'm going to bet if it's Joe Rogan and they're paying him $100 million, there's going to be ads all over that, at least, whether you're paying for it or not.
Right.
It's not gated. Or is it? Like, do you have to subscribe in the sense that you can't hear it at all unless you give money to Spotify?
That's what I assume, and that's what everybody's assuming.
Gosh, I heard of somebody else doing this like 10 years ago.
Howard Stern.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he lifted a whole, he lifted Sirius, right?
Yeah.
Right.
On his back.
And everybody says, oh, I'm never going to listen to Howard again. And then what they do, they ended up drifting to satellite radio. I didn't. But a lot of people drifted to satellite radio just to hear him. And I think Joe Rogan's going to lose some audience, but who cares? He's making $100 million. I mean, if only a quarter of his audience comes along, I don't know if Spotify makes any money out of it, but you can't fault Joe Rogan for doing that. And I also think, I don't think YouTube's worse off for that. If YouTube is a place of discovery. It's the second largest search engine out there, right? So he's been discovered, right? He's got an audience and a following. And if you think about the value that YouTube is bringing to other content creators, maybe this is too simplistic, but there's more oxygen in the room now with Joe Rogan not doing it. I think it's an opportunity for everybody. It's a win.
And it's just a very, very big, it's a much bigger room in general. I mean, YouTube is just so huge compared to Spotify in terms of the number of creators on there. And I was just sort of thinking about like when people used to talk about the long tail, YouTube is like the medium-sized tail. Like there's a lot of pretty big influencers on YouTube, but not huge like Joe Rogan, but way more people who are in the subscriber numbers that are around 1 million, or in the tens to hundreds of thousands, I guess, but views that are in the millions, and that is something that you just can't replicate that, or Spotify is not anywhere close to replicating that yet, I don't think, with podcasts.
Now, if content creators can go make money with gated content, I'm not going to disagree with that. Go for it. Make as much money as you possibly can. I'd cheer that all day long. I think the problem is that you've got people that are creating content that can't monetize it or have trouble monetizing it, and are kind of resentful of whether it's Rogan or somebody else finding a platform that's willing to. I mean, those are some incredible dollars. And as a entirely side note, I don't know. I know we've been chatting about it behind the scenes, all the Call Her Daddy drama from Barstool Sports, and to find out that both of those co-hosts were bringing down at least $500,000 a year.
Wow.
Greg, I meant to mention to you, Amy and I would like to renegotiate our contract. Starting. Starting with this episode.
So we've all got pay parity on this podcast. That's the nice thing, right?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Zero.
Does anybody else listen to podcasts on Spotify? Because I
don't.
I tried to, but you can't. I can't figure out how you actually subscribe to them because I can't follow them. Every one I have to search for, which seems like an odd thing, or maybe I'm using the tool wrong.
Well, I wonder if they'll evolve the platform a little bit because they've done some things that I think are really interesting. We have a family Spotify account right down to Marcy Lynn Shepherd. There's a pet playlist for Spotify, which is kind of a fun thing. They're like at home because she gets anxious. So we put on all this calming music for thunderstorms. So it's like right there together. I don't have to look it up. I can just throw it on there and Marcy Lynn Shepherd can chill during the thunderstorm. But so they have some neat features in terms of organization and playlists. But and they've got like lyrics that will come up on some songs. And some songs will even play videos because I have this great 80s list. And it's like if I watch my phone, then I can see that.
Is Dancing Queen on that list?
Oh, don't get me started, sir. I mean, do you guys look at Spotify? I do it on a casual glance basis, but for me, I put it on, I throw it down, like throw it to the Sonos usually, and like go on my way. I don't.
So here's the problem I personally have. So I use I wake up. My alarm is set to wake up to Spotify playlists every morning.
Dancing Queen specifically.
Oh,
yeah.
We're gonna find out, Sarah. You voted against me. Find out what's on this playlist because it's gonna be.
So I actually
digging.
Dancing Queen is on actually one of my playlists. But so what happens? The weird thing, and I'm sure there's a way to turn this off. When I get into my car, my Bluetooth automatically connects to my car. It automatically plays Spotify. And I'm like, what if I don't want to listen to Spotify? So one thing I've been getting into is iHeartRadio because I absolutely love Martha Quinn on 103.7 San Francisco iHeart 80s. And she's on every morning. And so I love listening to Martha. I could listen to her talk all day. She's actually got a podcast on iHeartRadio as well. And so I just like that radio station, and I like 80s music. So I want that coming into my car every time I turn my car on. Somehow Spotify's app has figured out a way to hijack my Bluetooth audio where it plays that. So to answer your question, Amy, I do, but I don't do deep exploration beyond creating a playlist. And once I create it, I don't go back into the app ever again.
You have a very strong integration with your life and Spotify. Like I think that's interesting. I think you're a teenage girl.
Oh, Eddie's called me worse.
Both do this, so you're the closest comparison I've got.
You know what though? The thing I can say is that Greg, at least you don't have an iOS device because every time I get in the car, fucking Apple Music turns on, man, and I don't even use it.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like at least you're not an abused child by Apple. Like you get something, you get Spotify. You got better choices than I do.
Well, it's no choice.
Three U2 songs you can't get rid of because I still can't get rid of them. And like when I accidentally touch my AirPods, bang! And I love U2, and I'm still angry.
That's the one they gave away for free a couple years ago during one of the Apple announcements, right?
Yeah.
It's still there. I cannot get rid of it.
So, Amy, I told you about the $1.99 song that you have to buy that's like dead air, right? Like there's a song you can buy specifically so you don't get hijacked by U2 with Apple Music. And I'll go find the song for you and send the link.
Thank you.
But yeah, but still.
We have a second. There's song 3.
Silence.
Words are so very...
So we've got Sarah's Big App of the Week. We've got Greg's Best Thing this week. And now we've got Eddie's Dead Air Song of the Week.
It's really cultivated silence. Like it's silence that was captured at the top of the Swiss Alps.
Like organic, artisanal.
Yeah.
Organic.
Each week it'll be a different artisanal silence. I like
this is our whole sponsored foods. Except then it'll cost $3.99.
Yeah.
So the other news this week, one of the things I picked up on, which is, I've kind of had this rant for a while about how journalism versus Google. It's kind of a common theme where Google's the great enemy, and now we've got countries that are looking to punish Google for doing what search engines do, which is collect and share content. And an interesting story came up by Megan Graham at CNBC. She did a story on, she built a website to demonstrate how plagiarized news sites create ad revenue. And she's been following how her own stories have been ripped off by sites that are generating ad revenue from her stories. So she created her own fake news site just to test it out and to sign up to all the platforms. And she got onto a number of ad platforms based off of copyrighted content, but the one that she couldn't get on was Google AdSense, which I thought was really interesting because Google's, whatever their algorithms they use, were able to detect plagiarized content and these farms of fake news sites. Maybe it's not fake news isn't the right word, but it's certainly plagiarized news sites.
Just sort of aggregators or bots of some sort that are skimming and scamming.
Yep. And she built her own and proved it. And so I thought it was very interesting. And it's one of those things that I think Google has been nothing. And look, there's plenty to bang on Google about. Google has helped create eyeballs for these news websites, these legitimate news websites. And I think it's the fault of those sites themselves that they haven't been able to properly monetize their sites and monetize their audiences. And I still believe that with this crisis that we're in and how disconnected and people are and the way virtual conferences and other virtual events have happened and how slow all these news sites have been to capitalize on that and provide content at scale for targeted audiences, and they're still not doing it. And it seems like such an obvious thing path to go down. I'm not very sympathetic with not, and I don't mean the journalists. I think the journalists are doing the best that they can, but they're kind of in a trap because they're at the mercy of the business models.
A platform.
Yeah,
they're a producer, but then the platforms become the question. And I think this is such an interesting thing. I think it's so cool that she did the work to run this kind of A/B test on it. And it's interesting, like you said, that Google, in some ways, they're so good at tagging things that their algorithm is such a workhorse that it was able to detect what was phony, fake, scammed, lifted off the top. I'm laughing just because the flip side of that, this week I was complaining because I had to copy paste something out of a Microsoft application into something else and it brought up a legacy. And I'm like, this is the inverse where you want it to, right? Google sort of sees all the bits and bytes behind the scenes and keeps things honest. But I see local newspapers struggling, and I don't know if you all remember, I remember I had several friends in that industry really struggling how to convert. And I think everybody tried to apply all old school models to new school media. And it was another case of not being able to figure out how to reward the artist, right? If we're just talking about Spotify, and it has a lot of flaws as far as that goes as well, because artists often only make money touring these days. It's a troubadour society. What do journalists have in that model? And what is it about us culturally that we've stopped being willing to pay for something that is important? How do we change that? How do we step in? How do we pay for art? Because that's what great journalism is. It's a very important form of writing that we depend on.
It is, but we also depend on those platforms, right? We kind of have to pick and choose which platform. Apple News sucks. I think that's a broken model.
And you know what really sucks about it? Sorry, Apple, if you can hear my voice, especially during this pandemic, it's really hard to turn those kinds of alerts and blasts off. I've got 2 teenage kids with iPhones, right? And it pushes things out to them, right? We've got limitations and we've got whatever, but it's like horrible news that you get right before bedtime. And it's difficult for them not to see it when they're following the rules and doing the right things on their phone. So I have tons of issues with platform alone.
I turned off notifications, but I also got to the point that I uninstalled Apple News.
Yeah.
And kudos to Apple for giving the ability of being able to dump the app in the first place. But just to kind of bring this back to the platforms, right? Because it's not just the equation, Amy, isn't just the artist, the journalist created the content. It's what horse they've attached themselves to. And it's funny, and I'll make a connection here back to Joe Rogan. You look at what Joe Rogan's done, right? He's converted his comedy, his acting, the things pre-internet, and converted that to something that is consumable and can be monetized to the internet. And a lot of times I see journalists working and being dependent upon a platform. They're not very good self-promoters generally. I mean, the best ones are out there and very well known, but generally the person writing for the Plain Dealer, well, actually there's nobody writing for the Plain Dealer anymore. It's all Cleveland.com now. But the people that are writing for that stuff have kind of succumbed to the model rather than branding themselves and branding their value. And that's another part of this journalism piece, is that journalism isn't just journalism anymore. And if you look at what Kara Swisher and others have done, right? Kara comes from a traditional journalism background, and that conversion that she's made into monetizing content that she's developing in a way that people want to pay for or advertisers want to sponsor. And I think journalists have it's a little bit more complicated for them.
But Greg, I mean, that just turns too many journalists into people who are having to become personal brands, and that destroys the spirit and the soul of journalism, which is at heart is a public service of truth telling. We've just, I mean, I think underneath this whole conversation, stop shaking your head for a second. Underneath this whole conversation is that we've lost a core part of our democracy in dribs and drabs over the last 15 years. It has been eroded to the point of, I think, no return. So there is no more local journalism anymore because all of these newspapers have been bought up by Gannett and by other, conglomerate media outlets that are their only business model is to sell ad space and to sell these bullshit circular coupons that come in your fucking mailbox. They're not even they don't care, and they don't care at all. Like, everybody at the Austin American Statesman practically has been laid off. There's nobody left. And I knew a lot of people that worked for that paper. So you can't have, everybody can't be Maggie Haberman even, let alone Kara Swisher. But there's no more business models. There's no more newspaper outlets to support journalism. It's gone. We have these 5 papers left.
But
and this multimedia concept, I'm right with you, that kills the somewhat, I know maybe it's Pollyanna-ish, but this concept of neutrality, because in some ways, if you don't have to worry about where your next paycheck comes from, then in theory, you're supposed to be able to dig in and find some of the facts that we get to.
Well, so Amy kind of started aligning journalists to artists, which is what they really are, right? If you think about the most successful artists, they are brands, whether they're creating music, whether they're creating artwork, paintings.
I really don't like that. I just fundamentally don't like that analogy. This is where Amy and I have to part ways a little bit.
What?
I mean, I think beautiful, good journalistic writing is an art form, but I do not think that journalists and artists, that there's a neat equivalency there, because journalists it comes back to this public service idea about what journalism is at its core, and the fact that it is a pillar of democracy, and an incredibly important function of our democratic society, and that makes it different from and set apart from artistry.
No, I don't disagree with that either. I would say that I would say that, though, culturally we have a problem. Well, honestly, we have a problem paying people for hard jobs, period. Let's be honest. We have as much problem paying janitors as we do teachers, as we do journalists and artists. And sorry, Eddie, I stepped on you there. But yes, I don't want to hold the analogy too far. I think culturally we have a problem paying people for things that we really enjoy.
Yeah, I think the part that's kind of getting a little bit mixed up here is that there's a little bit of a difference in terms of, in my opinion, an op-ed story versus kind of just pure fact-based reporting on a story based on the facts given. I think if you looked at people who are doing all these opinionated or opinion-related columns, that definitely would fall into the I've got a brand, I've got my opinion, I'm putting it out there, right? But if you flip it around to kind of Srah's point, the part that is supposed to not be opinion-based and is really kind of fact-driven, that's what's been driven into the ground to a large degree. So I think that like there's room for both. Obviously, if you paper, still, if you pick up one today, you should still see to some degree a facts-based related story, and then you'll see op-ed and opinions and letters from the editor and all those other things that are sitting there in the newspaper. The problem, I think, though, is that the vehicles for consumption really have muddied the waters and thrown away all of the rest of what Srah was talking about, which is the incredibly important reporting parts that we still need to this day, right? So I think, like going back to even looking at the extreme sense of, Kara Swisher and those people who are very, they got big personalities. The struggle for us at this point is with the vacuum of platforms and people being paid to do objective journalism. Now we're forced to sit there and look at like bullshit, like things on these fringe sites and YouTube and all of these weird opinions where there's not really anything that you could kind of journalism anymore. And like Srah, you were alluding, I mean, I used to work at the Indianapolis Star, and so many of those people have been laid off, and I was there for 7 years, and I kind of watched that transition start to happen where they were like, we don't need photographers anymore. We can have the reporters to carry iPhones. We don't need as many reporters covering local beats. We're going to pick up the bulk of our feeds from, the news wires and so on. And really, it's been watered down to where, like you were saying, like that critical service doesn't exist anymore. And now it really is all about the who's a rock star and who can keep going in their careers, because fuck all the rest, right?
I don't disagree with anything all of you said. I think it goes back to Amy's point of how the legacy models of generating revenue carried over to new media,
Sure.
and they don't work. And I think it goes back to my original point here is there's a lack of creativity on these platforms of generating revenue that gives them a level of freedom to be able to produce things. My comment about people becoming brands is that there is a way to do that. It doesn't mean it's the only way, right? And so I don't disagree.
Yeah, and I guess I just get emotional about it because it upsets me to think about what's happened. Just from watching the decline and fall of journalism in our society from the 80s to today. It's just been really depressing. And seeing the way that everything has been consolidated. I think you're right about a lot of things, and I think that these media outlets do need to pivot and do need to be more creative, but I don't think they will become that way because I think all they really care about is selling. And as long as we have these companies that are running the show and that are publishing journalism that only care about selling and don't care about service.
I'll say all they care about is selling advertising rather than selling value that businesses will pay for. Because I still believe, and Amy, it's funny, Amy and I were on kind of a thing earlier this week where I was talking about the importance of eyeballs and that companies in the tech industry, vendors will pay a king's ransom for more eyeballs. But you have to, and I just think the media in this case is one example. Some do it okay, but others have just failed beyond just simple banner ads, have not figured out how to monetize their audiences. And there's nothing wrong or slimy about saying monetize your audience. That's how these things stay in business. I just think there's been an incredible lack of creativity around it. But it also...
And because the alternative is you can't have it be funded by the government, because that's not a path. Like, we can't have that subsidized in that way.
No.
Hey, Amy, we used to think like the way NPR worked was not so bad. Like, they would get some money from the government. They would get some money through fundraisers. And I think some people look at the situation we're in now and they're like, there's no way we want purse strings attached to anybody who hasn't.
Who can dictate any of those.
Exactly.
Absolutely agree. Well, look, this is a holiday weekend in the U.S., and I actually tried to take a day off yesterday to kind of have a 4-day weekend. Mixed results on actually kind of turning off unplugging my computer. So what are you guys doing? We're in a pandemic. Things are starting to open up. I ventured out. So Friday, I was going to go do a little bit of day drinking, which I haven't done in forever. I walk in the bar, and I'm like, I don't want to drink with any of these people in here. And I walked back out and came back home.
Did you really? You didn't even get one drink?
No. I literally, I walked in. I asked the bartender where the owner, who's a friend of mine, where he was at. She's like, I have no idea. I'm like, and I looked around. And I would guess, me and my bad stereotypes, I'm going to guess the majority of people that were there were professional day drinkers. And people I just didn't know personally.
Right, you were like, I'm just looking for like the casual day drinkers where they hit this and they do this maybe like once a month, not the pros that are here.
Right, like a little giggle and a nod and a wink. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So what do you guys, Amy, what are you doing on this glorious holiday weekend besides recording a podcast?
Oh, well, obviously, that's the most important thing you can do to delineate between work and life. I'm such an advocate for you have to create, even if you have to mark time in some ways or you go nuts, and you have to mark differences, right, between days and between events. So, it's the grilling time for grilling. Memorial Day, people go outside and they grill things. So I'm definitely going to grill some things. But I actually was doing a little bit of research. I'm like, hey, maybe there's more creative people than me. And I found this very interesting New York Times piece where somebody said they actually thought the pandemic could drive us to, quote unquote, vacation at home, not meaning just in our house, but as things lift a bit, to do it locally. And they were British and talked about how they always go to France on holiday and that they were going to go to some of the local beaches. And for them, that was, I guess not done. And I think about the things here, like, right, you've got your highbrow and your lowbrow, and it's been such an economic disparity between where you vacation. The article also talks about when national parks got way more attendance, et cetera, et cetera. So long story endless, it's the person's opinion was that maybe we'll drive some of our economy back locally. We'll do things outdoors. We'll go camping. We'll spend time with our families. We'll reinvigorate some of these sleepy towns that used to be, stops on the highway, on the interstate, that have lost a lot, that it'll have a positive environmental impact and maybe a positive economic impact if we spend our dollars locally.
I think that sounds good in spirit. I have no interest to go down the road and see what's going on, or I literally I could ride my bike 10 minutes north and hit Lake Erie, and let's call it what it is. And Sarah knows this. Lake Erie is not exactly people lined up, sunning themselves like it was South Beach or anything. So there's plenty of social distancing on Cleveland's beaches, but just naturally.
You're going to have to do some local, but further local vacationing to get the day drinkers of choice, Greg. I think that's what we're here.
Yeah, you could drive a little east and go to some of those vineyards out in eastern Ohio. Yeah. Do a little wine tour.
Have you tasted Ohio wines? They're kind
of a while, but I have.
They tend to be a little sweeter. They don't really age because you've got the short window, the short growing season and things. And immature wines tend to be sweeter. If you're
my highbrow is high and lowbrow is low. that would be a lowbrow day trip.
We talked about Jody Tyrus a few weeks ago. So the Cavaliers were playing the Golden State Warriors a few years ago. Her and I had a bet, and I won the bet. And the bet was she worked for a winery, so she sent me a very nice bottle of wine. The following year, I lost the bet. I shipped her a bottle of Lake Erie's finest.
Oh, she must have been so mad at you.
It was about $5 a bottle. Let's just put it like that.
It's a wonder she still speaks to you.
I don't think
you could cook with it, I guess.
A secret here is I hope she's not listening. So I lost again the following year, and I forgot to ship her something. I just kind of left it alone.
No, and she didn't mention it because she was afraid you'd ship another bottle of that.
Yeah. No doubt. So.
But in all seriousness, I told my girls I may actually go camping, and I hate camping above all things, but we've been national park people for a while, but we may get out and go to the parks, or, I'm going to try to break it up a little bit. I think that you have to be inventive, and I'm very committed to making them feel like when we're in school, we're in school, when we're out of school. And the same thing for me for work. When I'm at work, I'm at work, and when I stop, I stop. And I even took my mail off my phone for this weekend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's commitment.
What do you mean? You like uninstalled it?
I did.
Oh.
Jared's like, she's not fucking around. This is serious.
I'm having a seizure at the thought.
I know. I can see it. Greg and I are going to have a whole workshop on this. But yeah, I think you have to create these lines. So we'll see. I totally get your point. There's all these spectacular things in the world I want to see too. But it's forcing me to look a little bit locally.
I'm actually not even looking forward to getting on a plane again anytime soon. So a friend of mine, I asked him yesterday because obviously I was looking for a place to drink. I'm like, hey, where are you drinking tonight? He says, I'm in Palm Springs. I'm like, what? And so he's out with friends. He got on a plane. He said he had the whole road of the plane to himself. He felt very comfortable. And he's in Palm Springs hanging out with his buddies. And I think about that. And on the surface, it sounds cool. But in reality, no, I'm good here. I don't need to, and you guys know me anyway. We've talked about my social distancing. I did, my normal.
Normal.
Now I've got a good excuse to do this, right? In a bar where it's not awkward to keep my distance and expect other people to keep their distance. And I still don't want to do it. I don't know. I think this. I don't want to make this all about me, but just for me, I'm just very comfortable not venturing out too far, and that's good enough for now.
Well, what's anybody else doing for this weekend? Are you guys attempting to do some vacationing at home or delineate one day from the next?
Eddie has just moved from Indiana to Texas, so he's already had his cross country.
And he's kind of still. Aren't you sort of still in the middle? Like in the middle, like don't you have a lot more going on with the move?
Yeah, so the movers are supposed to be bringing my stuff and my daughter's mom's stuff on Sunday or Monday. So I still have to be around for that. But I mean, I don't have to make another trip up there. But you guys know, I mean, I was taking when COVID hit, I started just doing the drive, and I was doing it like every month and a half.
Yeah.
Right. And that was only 2 trips ramping up to this move. Hoping that the house is supposed to close next week. But as long as it closes, then I don't have to really have a reason to step foot back in that state. If it doesn't, then I might have to go back up if I have to rent the house out or do other random stuff. But yeah, it's kind of ramping down. We actually don't have very many plans. I don't know. We've been taking the dogs. The dog park opened up and the bar was closed. So we took them once or twice, right? And now they just opened up the bar, and I see these groups of people.
Your dog park has a bar? Or are these?
Yeah, somebody tried to kind of re-educate me on my the reason why you love to go to the dog park is because you like to go drink, and I'm like, well, it's not bad. Taking your dog to a dog park and being able to drink, that's a win-win for me.
Yeah.
But the bar just opened up. I know the owner doesn't listen to the podcast. Before it opened up, there was BYO beverage. You could not bring alcohol. But I can assure you that my clean canteen or whatever had enough beer in it to survive an hour and a half there. But anyway, so we started venturing out just a little bit more. But you know what? I see people here in Austin getting together and doing the restaurant thing and them opening up. And I'm just like, you fuckers wait 2 months. This shit is going to hit the fan. This is going to hit the fan in ways that you guys don't even realize. And so, I know that in the back of my head, but at the same time, I'm just, we are going to the dog park. We don't have masks or gloves on. We're using hand sanitizers and we're staying away from people. But I'm just like, fuck, I'm asking for it, right? I'm like, when is this stuff going to end up hitting us? Because the people, I see pictures on Facebook with people walking down a street or talking about their experience at a shopping center or whatever, and they're the only person with a mask on, and everybody's clustered around like nothing is happening. So we're chilling at home. We're kind of doing the just hang out here for the weekend. And I have a poor work-life balance right now, as you guys know, from my scheduling issue.
Yeah. So Sarah,
I'm working some again.
I'm curious, Sarah. What are the big plans? You said you had the rest of the family kicked out of the house. Hopefully hopefully they've got some cover over their head wherever they're at. But
they're in the backyard.
They're camping. They're camping, Greg.
So what are you doing this weekend?
Take this peanut butter jar and this loaf of bread and go in the backyard and don't come back until it's Tuesday morning.
No, that, my friend, is a staycation.
So what are your big plans?
To be alone. My plans are to be alone. So far, it's been great. I'm not doing anything different. Like, I'm not going out there. I went for a run. Like, I'm doing those kinds of things, but I have no desire to set foot in either an enclosed or an open air dog park style bar. I don't want to be around anybody. I don't trust these people in Texas. And we've had, to Eddie's point, like there's been pictures of people like hordes of people rafting on the river and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
And, it's about to, shit's going to go down here in a few weeks and we're going to have a big spike. And I'm just staying in my house.
So
I also have a friend who is, she's getting surgery in a month and I'm going to be her person for a week. So I need to be really careful right now because I have to protect myself so that when I could go over there, I don't get her sick.
Right. Fair enough. Hey, one thing I've discovered, and I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast or not. I'm a really bad drinker, meaning I don't drink that much when I'm sitting here at home. I'm not somebody that has a glass of wine or a cocktail just and kind of unwind.
It's practice, Greg. You got to train yourself.
I can't even drink water on a regular basis. But so it's interesting because I do love the social aspect about going out and drinking. And that's the only reason I drink, as I've discovered, is just for the social side of it.
Oh, interesting.
Not really for the alcohol piece of it. And so now you've got kind of a collision of things to where if you want to go out and have a drink, you're not really being that social because, if you're distancing properly and other things. So there's no incentive at all to drink. Anyway.
This is a master plan for weight loss, Greg. Like just reducing your calorie consumption.
Oh, no, no. Let's just not confuse those things. So, I'm perfecting the art of I'm perfecting the art of being a couch potato. So, I've got really creative with the nachos I can create.
Greg, have you
How's
invented
the Peloton treadmill exercising going?
It's to be determined. It's
TBD.
I haven't started yet, sir. I got to. I am starting to get just from the being health. I can see even just being a typical remote office worker, and when you do travel and other things, you're getting exercise and other things. And with that taken out of my life, I'm no exercise and getting up, my knees creak. It takes a little oil to get the joints moving like they should. I'm
a little can like the Tin Man.
Yes, I'm
pour it into the joints.
I'm definitely feeling it. So I've got to get back on the Peloton. I got to get into watching what I eat. I got to get it back into cutting out the bread. Because when I was kicking it low carb style and exercising, boy, the weight just fell off, and it wasn't that hard. But it is a mindset. You just got to be committed to no pizza and no sandwiches.
That sounds like a sad place to live.
And no nachos.
No, I don't hear the words coming out of your mouth.
When I've done it, so the plus side of that is I love steaks, and so that's great, right? If you're a meat eater, a bacon eater, and all the meats, being on a low carb diet is a good place to be in.
You can do vegetables too, bud.
Well, not all
just
vegetables.
Throwing that out there.
You can't do potatoes.
Steak and spinach.
Yeah.
Potatoes are yes.
Look at his face. All right, viewers. This is a reason to watch instead of listen to this. Just to watch Greg Neerman's face when you say spinach. It does not look like Popeye's face.
Well,
Spoiler alert.
I was thinking.
It's so sad.
Because I do like broccoli and asparagus.
Okay.
Well, there you go. You can have those.
That's awesome.
My old friends at Hitachi used to purposely I'd order a steak and they'd order this big side of Brussels sprouts and see, Greg doesn't eat any greens. I'm like, it's Brussels sprouts. Those don't count. And seriously, I question anybody that says they love Brussels sprouts. Okay, let me revise that. Grilled Brussels sprouts are fantastic. The boiled Brussels sprouts are
no, but people don't cook them that way anymore. I roast them mostly.
Yes. Roasted's the way to go.
Boiled is from our childhood. That used to show up on the Thanksgiving table every year when I was a kid. That's the only time I ever saw them, and they were gray, and I thought they were horrible and bitter, and I did not understand why anybody would eat them.
I mean, you might as well boil some cabbage and just sit there and eat the whole thing in your mouth if you're going to do that, right?
I can taste it in my mouth. Thing. It's like... So, Amy, we didn't get to you. What are you doing on this miraculous weekend?
Well, like I said, I think I'm going to grill some things. So
Brussels sprouts?
I'm going to grill some Brussels sprouts. They're back orders on all these pizza stones. All I want to do is grill a pizza. Speaking of foods you're not going to eat, so that's more for me. I just want to grill a pizza. But I'm going to have to just grill a steak instead.
You're not going anywhere? No local parks?
I did. I will admit. I don't know if this is. We'll see if this comes back to bite me. But I think we were pretty careful. A small group of us got together today and went out on the soccer pitch. We stayed far apart. It's outside, and it was a small group.
Was there alcohol involved?
No.
Okay.
We might perhaps we need some afterward because I've been running, and I definitely could feel like I felt healthier and more competitive. But soccer and running use very different muscle groups, and so now I had to both soak in a hot tub, so I had a spa moment, and then I had to do yoga, and I'm still sore.
How was your breathing?
Oh my gosh!
Are you breathing well?
You know what? I have started practicing breathing. I'm one of those people. I was listening to the Happiness podcast, and one of the hosts says that it's like, don't think about pink elephants. If you talk to her about breathing, she stops being able to breathe. And I'm one of those people too, but I've been practicing so that I don't overthink breathing and then cut my own oxygen off, which is really necessary for running.
Any tips for us? I'd like to start breathing.
Amazing you've made it this long, Greg, without breathing. You should really try it. It oxygenates your blood. It's incredible.
I'm thinking about relaxation and kind of chilling out because let's just be transparent here. This is our second effort today to record this podcast because Greg was a little cranky, a little wound up earlier today. We also had some of us had internet issues and some other things. So it was good to take kind of a breather, but without breathing exercises. So Amy, Srah, Eddie, do you guys have any relaxation breathing tips that you like? I've heard of the box method, so I read some story about some Navy SEAL that talks about the kind of the 4 steps of breathing: inhaling, holding for 4 seconds, exhaling for 4 seconds, inhaling slowly for 4 seconds. That routine, it works for about 10 seconds for me out of that.
Okay. Now, listeners, now you need to tune in to see Eddie's face because apparently Eddie is very against.
I'm confused. I'm learning. This is a teaching moment. Whatever. I don't know.
So, Srah, can you describe the box method? I know it lightly, but I'm not sure I could describe it.
Well, Greg just missed a step was all. So it's in for a count of. Well, I don't know if it has to be 4 or 5 or different people have different counts, but it's in for a count of 5, say, hold for a count of 5, out for a count of 5, hold for a count of 5, then back in for a count of 5. So some people do that. Some people you breathe in for 3, maybe you hold at the top, you breathe out for 3, and then you do it for 4, and then you do it for 5, and you keep expanding that breath so it gets longer and longer.
What is the point of this? I know the point of puff, puff, give. There's a solid point to puff, puff, give. But what is? So
it calms your central nervous system. It lowers your blood pressure.
And weed does that too.
Weed does that too, but maybe has an effect on your lungs, and maybe isn't something that everybody.
Good point. I don't.
You do smoke weed, but day drinking, weed smoking.
Yeah, but day drinking raises your blood pressure. Weed's bad for your lungs, so we're gonna have to go to the box breathing.
So, because great athletes have great control over their lung capacity.
Capacity.
Yeah.
Okay.
and breathing. And part of the way you build that, and again, I was a terrible runner for many, many reasons, and I'm getting better at it because I don't like huff, basically. I don't just like try to suck in little bits of air.
Right.
I like do it more efficiently. And the more efficiently I breathe, then I'm actually calmer. And then, when they used to give you the paper bag to breathe into, if you were about to pass out, that concept, it forces you, it regulates breathing. And so you see all these ads, like you'll see them on late night television, you see them pushed out, and I'm sure my phone's
for the Breathe app, right?
For Breathe, for Calm, for all these apps, especially right now.
There's an app for breathing?
Yes.
Well,
I saw it on TV.
Yeah. Like it helps you count.
There's also it's built into the Apple Watch, so
I saw that too. Yeah,
activate a breathing reminder, and it will just through the haptics on the watch, it'll breathe in and out with you over the course of either a minute or 3 minutes or whatever you want to set it to.
So if you're, and in all seriousness, if you're exercising and you get short of breath, like people who have sports asthma, these are really good things because they may not need an inhaler. They may need to just relax their bodies so they can get oxygen more effectively. If you're panicking, that's why these apps are good for calming people down. I've done I don't like to fly. I'm notoriously bad flyer. So I've done a lot of breathing over the years just to chill out. So I'm not that person on the
Into
plane.
Those barf bags they supply behind the seat.
Where's my bag? Amy was on this flight. I don't have one to use. Son of a bitch. I will say, though, that on breathing, like, I get what you guys are talking about, which is different. Like, I have worked with my kids in general when they are having trouble falling asleep, and myself, where I'll focus on breathing and that will put me to sleep. So that's when they're anxious or whatever, like, it's like I don't do the asshole, like, just go to sleep, like, knock it off. Like, I'm like, okay, lay down and just focus on your breathing when you're inhaling and exhaling. And when you're thinking about it, like, your mind the distractions stop going away. So I kind of know of breathing from that respect, but I didn't realize there was a whole, it's obvious, right? Now that you guys talk about lung capacity and everything else, I just never really worked on my lung capacity for anything other than running from the police, right, Amy?
I would also like to point out, somehow this is spread that I run every day. I enjoy that I am barely able to run a 5K. I run it in a slow time, and somehow people think I am now Usain Bolt. So, good job.
Well, you are tall, so it's not a stretch to assume that you would be a running athlete that does marathons and stuff like that.
Oh boy, yeah. In my mind, Eddie. In my mind.
So, let's get into Sarah's big app of the week. Sarah, what do you got for us?
Breathe, calm.
By the way, that Calm app, I've used it and uninstalled it within 5 minutes.
Brag.
She is the most annoying voice in the history of voices.
I'm the only
internet.
person
I cannot stand her.
I know. I'm the only person who loves her. Like, I have, like, LeBron James has a series on there I listen to. I listen to the music, which is, like, really irritating, borderline Yanni. Like, I'm a Calm app aficionado.
I want to put in a plug for an app called Insight Timer, which has been around for a lot longer than Calm. Actually has a lot more subscribers and is whatever. And is it has more. There's more there. So there are many meditation teachers with audio on that app. You can sort by length of time, by topic or subject that you want, but it also just has a timer. So if you want to just set a timer to meditate or do a breathing practice to, you can choose the bell sound that you want to begin and end the practice, and then just set the timer, and then it will go off at the end. So it's pretty great, and I use that. There's also like nature sounds and Yanni music on there too, if you need that, like a background noise to go to sleep too, which I sometimes do. But Insight Timer, it's not even my app of the week, but I'm throwing it in as an extra.
Wow, we got a bonus this week.
Bonus, better than Calm. And then
what is your app?
My app is actually a newsletter that. Do you all know who Paul Ford is? He's written for a lot of outlets, including Wired. He goes by F Train on
F Train
on Twitter. I've 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 interacted with him a couple of times. I've been following him a long time. I think he's just a really, really, really good writer. And he started a newsletter called "I Absolutely Am Going to Bail on This in a Month," which you may or may not bail on. But he's been sending so far daily emails, which is, I was like, I didn't realize I was signing up for daily, but okay. But I took a dive into them yesterday because I hadn't had a chance to read them, and there were about 4 that had piled up in my inbox, and they're all just delightful. So my favorite one so far is he wrote a whole breakdown of a CD set from the 90s that was built to support Sting's music by Starwave. So it's a whole CD set that is like featuring Sting. And there's screenshots of it. It's incredible. But he wrote a whole piece about how amazing it is and hilarious it is and what a bizarre like artifact it is of how the internet or web culture was trying to figure out how to support artists at that time and just really had no idea and was making these bizarre like game-like interactive CDs for music that were totally bananas. So I recommend his newsletter, and I will put a link to it in. I put a link in our channel on Slack, Greg, and I'll put it in our regular channel. And then I don't know how else we're doing show notes. How are we doing show notes? Just Slack?
Yeah, Slack, or in the actual show notes that we use for prep for the podcast. That's good too, because I'll incorporate that in the summary I build.
You can't come and see those.
No.
So come to our channel. That's a sub plug for come into Slack so that you can get all the goodies that I'm sharing every week.
Very good, Sarah. How can people find the Slack channel?
It is bit.ly/nerdherdpod.
Yeah, nailed it. All right. Well, Amy, let me see. I'll give you an easy one this week. How can they find our YouTube videos that nobody watches?
Nerd Herd TV.
.tv. That's right. That's right. You forgot the .tv.
Right.
We'll count that.
So, no, it's
so Eddie, how can people find us on Twitter?
Oh, nerd_herd_pod on Twitter.
Holy shit, we got a trifecta here, and I'm going to go 4 for 4 with please leave us a 5-star review. Go to Apple iTunes, whether you use Apple iTunes or not. Leave us a 5-star review, or don't, but just leave a really good comment so we can read them on the podcast. We've got it's funny, this is our 21st episode. We've got 21 reviews on iTunes.
21 for 21.
Yeah, I think those are written reviews. I'm not sure or if those are just somebody selecting stars. Anyway, you can check out the other reviews. Some of them are very funny, but leave one yourself. And have a great, I guess the weekend will be mostly over by the time this publishes. But a lot of people are taking vacations this week in the U.S.
Well, Monday is often a holiday for a lot of folks, so maybe
I'm taking Tuesday off too.
Ditto, 4-day weekend. So maybe they can enjoy this podcast in all its forms on Monday.
Good. Yeah. I hope they do. Well, that's been fantastic. So thank you, Amy. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Eddie. And thank you to our audience. And we'll see everybody next week. Thank you.
Bye.
See ya.